Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of sources, strip away all the noise, and really deliver the concentrated knowledge you need to be well-informed. And today, we're doing something a little different. We are merging two of the world's, I think, most persistent and universal pleasures: food and advanced language acquisition.
It's a fascinating combination and one that's just so deeply practical. We're going to be doing a really comprehensive deep dive into how the seemingly simple act of eating out in America is, well, it's actually one of the most effective, structured, and challenging ways to refine your English proficiency. Right up to that advanced near-native C2 level.
That's right. So the mission today is pretty precise. We want to unpack how the American dining experience, of all things, functions as this supremely powerful pedagogical tool. It combines the sensory world of gastronomy with the really rigorous demands of sociolinguistics.
And we're looking at these everyday interactions not as simple transactions. We're viewing them as high-stakes classrooms. That's the key.
High-stakes classrooms. I love that framing.
And that premise is everything. I mean, just consider the environment for a second. A restaurant forces you, it compels you to engage with strangers.
Right. Often under pressure.
Under time pressure, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to order quickly. You've got to critically analyze these complex written materials, which are just the menus themselves. And crucially, you have to navigate social, economic, and cultural situations that are very often way outside of your immediate comfort zone.
Yeah.
So to succeed here, you need more than just vocabulary. This environment, it demands cultural assertion, linguistic clarity, and just absolute precision.
Exactly. The pressure is real, and I think the learning moments are often so memorable because they carry that social risk.
They absolutely do.
I remember my own stumbling blocks when I was first trying to build fluency. I was terrified of ordering anything I hadn't, rehearsed in my head a dozen times.
Oh, of course.
And I once tried to order a burger. And just in a complete fit of nerves, I totally butchered the pronunciation of Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even a word. It was just a series of incomprehensible syllables.
The impossible word, a classic test.
It was mortifying, absolutely. But looking back on it now, it was an invariable pedagogical experience.
How so?
It forced me to listen, really listen, to the server's quiet correction, to break down that impossible consonant cluster in real time and integrate it immediately.
Right.
The fear of repeating that mistake, that's what made the knowledge stick. And that transformation, taking a simple, potentially embarrassing moment and turning it into a concrete piece of learned knowledge.
Yeah.
That's really the core philosophy of this whole deep dive.
That is the perfect illustration. Ordering food seems so fundamental, but it is absolutely rife with nuance and cultural conventions that trip up even highly fluent non-native speakers. To get to C2 proficiency, you have to master not just the core lexicon, but the entire complex social contract. The politeness markers, the right register, the level of precision that's required. We have to get you beyond simply asking for food. We need you to feel confident, commanding the entire interaction from the moment you walk in to the moment you walk out.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If the ultimate goal is to conquer this dining experience, where does the linguistic preparation actually begin? Because it's definitely not when you're standing awkwardly by the host, stand with a growling stomach.
No, absolutely not.
So before you even step through the door, what are some preemptive strategies that can save a learner from all that stress, that anxiety, and the potential communication breakdowns?
The critical importance of preemptive familiarization, it just cannot be overstated. We advocate for viewing the menu, the restaurant's website, even food blogs about the place as your first and most essential study guide. And this isn't just skimming, this is detailed analysis.
So the strategy is pretty straightforward then. Peruse menus online, consume some culinary content, food blogs, review sites, cooking shows before you go. But why is this so crucial for someone at the C2 level? I mean, they already know the word chicken.
Because a C2 learner is moving beyond just recognition. They're moving to application and to nuance.
I see.
Looking at the menu online lets you preload all this linguistic data before the real-time application starts, which is when your cognitive load is already high because of the social pressure. You're moving past the basic food names to acquiring all these rich descriptive adjectives and, most importantly, the preparation methods.
Okay, give us some specifics here. What should we really be looking for and internalizing? We need the details that are actually going to stick.
You should be actively seeking out and absorbing words like succulent, which implies juiciness and texture, or astringent, which describes a kind of sharpness and flavor, or pungent for strong cheeses and spices. But the preparation methods are key. You absolutely need to be able to distinguish seared, which means quick, high-heat browning, from braised, which implies slow cooking in liquid, or confit, cooking slowly in fat. Charred, which is that smoky, intentional burning.
And understanding those terms is so vital, isn't it? Because they communicate not just a cooking method, but a whole expectation of texture and flavor profile and even its origin.
Precisely.
If you misinterpret braised, you might assume something's going to be crispy when in fact it means it's going to be falling apart, tender, and moist. That is a huge difference in expectation, and it's all based on decoding one single verb.
And that precise understanding leads us directly into the next challenge, which is precision in ordering. And this gets it gets exponentially magnified by the unique complexities and the real customization culture of American cuisine.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
We have to confront the idiosyncrasies of native speakers and this absolute requirement to specify preferences. It all comes from the seemingly endless customizability of American dishes. And for many international visitors who are used to a fixed, non-negotiable dish, this flexibility it's just paralyzing.
It is the great American challenge.
Yeah.
Everything is potentially customizable. And this requires not just a big vocabulary, but a high degree of assertiveness to successfully negotiate it all.
Yeah.
You order a simple sandwich, and you have to be prepared to specify the bread, the cheese, whether the condiments go on the side, if it's toasted, and probably 3 other modifications.
The classic example, the one that is non-negotiable and demands absolute precision, is, of course, the whole spectrum for meat temperature.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're ordering a high-quality, expensive steak, miscommunicating your preferred level of doneness isn't just a linguistic slip-up. It's, as you said, an expensive culinary tragedy.
Indeed. You need the complete culturally recognized vocabulary. Rare, medium, well, and well done. And you need the assertiveness to state it clearly without being prompted. The server might not ask, how would you like that prepared? You have to volunteer that precision. It shows command.
But let's go even deeper into the C2 complexity. It's one thing to say medium rare, but what about advanced customization, especially with, say, compound dishes?
That is the next level. If you can confidently order the chicken breast with roasted vegetables, that's C1. A C2 learner should be able to negotiate a complete overhaul of the dish.
So give us an example. What would that sound like?
For example, instead of just ordering the risotto, you might need to say something like, could I please have the seasonal mushroom risotto, but I'd like to substitute the grilled asparagus with the seasonal truffle offering. And if there is any reduction, I would prefer that on the side.
Yeah, that is a masterclass in modification. It involves recognizing the component parts of a dish, knowing the specialized language of high-end ingredients, truffle offering, reduction, and using that modal verb would prefer to soften the demand. That's not just fluency. That's cultural intelligence about service etiquette.
Precisely. And in situations where the vocabulary or the concept is unfamiliar, even after you've done your preparation, we arrive at the vitals of verification. You should never, ever be shy about seeking clarification instead of just relying on an assumption.
I know that feeling so well. You see a dish name that sounds vaguely familiar, or maybe the description uses a word you only half know, and you just kind of nod and smile and hope for the best. That's where the high stakes kick in.
That is the direct path to immediate culinary disappointment and linguistic stagnation. We really encourage using tactical, polite, but sophisticated language. For instance, instead of just asking, what is coleslaw? You could elevate it and ask, could you elucidate what exactly the side of coleslaw consists of? Is it a mayonnaise-based dressing, or is it more vinegar-based?
Okay, now I have to challenge you on the word elucidate. While it definitely demonstrates high-level C2 vocabulary, couldn't using such a formal academic word maybe sound a little stuffy? Or maybe even patronizing to a busy server?
That is an excellent question, and it introduces a fascinating layer of what we could call linguistic risk management. And yes, elucidate is highly formal.
Right.
But the C2 learner is making a calculated decision. They're prioritizing precision and a demonstration of their command of the language. You are signaling that you are an advanced speaker who simply needs some specialized information, not a beginner who doesn't understand basic English.
The politeness marker, the could you, is what softens it.
It mitigates the formality. Exactly. It transforms a simple question into a conscious linguistic exercise.
So it's about making a clear, conscious choice about your register, understanding the potential social reaction, but committing to that demonstration of mastery. I like that.
And if you fail to verify, well, you risk repeating the cautionary tale I experienced myself.
Oh.
I once ordered a special, assuming from the single vague descriptor, which sounded like a type of French noodle, that it was pasta.
Okay.
It was not. I was subsequently presented with a massive steaming portion of liver and onions.
Oh no, the dreaded liver incident. That must have been a profoundly memorable learning experience.
It was the ultimate very high-stakes lesson. Never assume, always verify. The discomfort of eating a meal I really disliked was honestly secondary to the linguistic cost of letting an ambiguous term just slide by without clarification. The high stakes there, social comfort and culinary satisfaction, they're powerful motivators for achieving linguistic precision.
So that really closes out the preparation phase. We've mastered the menu, we know how to use advanced modification language, and we know how to ask clarifying questions. But beyond the plate itself, American dining involves this really complex set of socioeconomic and cultural conventions. And these routinely trip up international visitors who are, fluent in general conversation, but they just lack this hyper-specific cultural context.
This is where we transition from the purely linguistic challenges to navigating these sociolinguistic and economic minefields. And we absolutely have to begin with the perennial source of confusion, the one subject that causes universal stress.
The tipping minefield.
The tipping minefield.
Tipping etiquette. It really is a genuine cultural contract, isn't it? It's not a suggestion.
Not at all.
In many cultures, the service charge is included, or tipping is just a discreet gesture for exceptional appreciation. But in the U.S., it's an implicitly mandatory social convention that you have to master.
Indeed, and understanding this is crucial. The convention is rooted in the specific socioeconomic structure of the American service industry. Service staff rely very heavily on these gratuities for their livelihood, as their base wages are often subsidized by the expectation of tips.
So omitting a tip is seen not as a casual oversight, but as you withholding a necessary portion of someone's income.
Correct. So understanding this isn't about being generous, it's about adhering to an established system.
So what's the essential math? That's the bare minimum rule that a learner needs to internalize immediately.
The general consensus dictates a gratuity of about 15% for acceptable service, and that escalates to 20% for good to excellent service. And a key detail that's often missed. This percentage has to be calculated based on the pre-tax bill amount. You are tipping on the cost of the food and the service, not on the taxes collected by the government.
That distinction pre-tax is a perfect example of a nuanced detail that defines C2 cultural competence. But let's get into the complexity. What about tipping when you're in a large party?
That introduces the concept of the mandatory gratuity. For large parties, typically 6 or more people, many American restaurants will automatically apply an 18% gratuity.
And that's usually printed on the menu somewhere.
Often, yes. It'll be clearly printed on the menu or on the check itself. So the C2 learner needs the vocabulary to recognize mandatory gratuity or service charge included, so they don't inadvertently tip another 20% on top of the mandatory 18.
Right, double tipping. And what about those quick service transactions, like a coffee shop or counter service, places where you only briefly interact with the staff?
That's a bit of a softer rule. Quick service places, especially those with the tablets that prompt you for a tip, they operate on a different scale. Tipping is appreciated, but it's generally considered optional for, say, a simple cup of coffee or a grabbed pastry.
Right.
However, if the service involved significant customization or complexity, a small tip, maybe 10% or just rounding up, is the appropriate cultural signal.
And when the learner pays by credit card, that's where the language of the slip itself comes into play.
Absolutely. The learner must understand the structure of a credit card receipt. It will have 3 lines: subtotal, tip gratuity, and total. You have to clearly write the dollar amount of the tip and then calculate and write the final total correctly.
Yeah, miscalculation or just illegible writing can lead to confusion or overpayment.
It's a quick final math and precision test.
Okay, let's confront the consequences of omission. Omitting the tip entirely is a huge social faux pas. But what if the service was genuinely awful?
Well, if the service was truly abysmal, withholding the tip entirely is often seen as a kind of passive-aggressive retribution. A C2 learner should use this situation as an opportunity for advanced linguistic diplomacy. The preferred diplomatic action is to initiate a conversation with the manager.
So instead of just leaving 0, which is confusing and often misinterpreted, you use your advanced communication skills to seek a resolution.
Precisely. You would use controlled, measured language. Something like, I'm providing some feedback because I feel the quality of service today didn't meet the standard I expect. Could we discuss the specific issues with the timing and the preparation, as I'm hesitant to provide a full gratuity based on this experience?
That's some high-level linguistic engagement right there.
It requires fluency, control, and a nuanced understanding of negotiation.
Okay, let's transition from the finance part to the transaction itself, the language of paying. We're looking for those crucial idiomatic expressions and politeness markers used when you're asking for the bill.
You can't just yell bill or money across the room, though we've certainly heard it happen.
Right.
We need polite requests, and we need to understand the regional and contextual differences.
So let's start with the basics. What's the preferred way to ask?
Emphasizing, could I please have the check, or may we please get the check, is standard. The conditional modal verb could or may, and the inclusion of please transforms it into a request that respects the server-patron relationship.
And check is the standard term.
Check is standard, yes. Bill is sometimes used, but it's a bit less common in American casual dining.
And what about the crucial idiom when you're dining with friends or colleagues? The check-splitting dilemma.
Mastering those social idioms is vital. If you intend for everyone to pay an equal share, regardless of what they consumed, you need to be able to ask, are we splitting the bill evenly? If you're at a bar or a casual place, you might ask, can we run a tab? Meaning they keep a running total until you close it out at the end.
Run a tab, another great functional phrase. And what about the classic idiom for paying separately?
Shall we go Dutch? That is the universally understood expression for everyone paying strictly for their own share. Using that idiom shows immediate cultural fluency, and it saves you a lengthy explanation. It signals that you understand the social norms of communal dining.
Right.
A C2 learner should also be able to navigate the host offering to pay. No, please, let me get this, it's my treat. And the appropriate response, which is often a polite refusal followed by a sincere thanks.
Now, if we really connect this to the bigger picture, dining in America offers a deep, immediate dive into the nation's cuisine diversity. It reveals these sociolinguistic maps that change dramatically as you move across the country.
This is truly a study in cultural heritage masquerading as a lunch order. The food terminology itself is a form of cultural study.
Absolutely. Just consider barbecue. It's not just a dish, it's a regional dialect.
It is. If you're in Kansas City, you're talking about burnt ends and a thick sweet sauce. In North Carolina, you're in the land of vinegar or mustard-based sauces, and the term for barbecue might just be Q.
And if you order a brisket,
you're likely in Texas. Understanding those specific terms means you are participating in a local cultural narrative, not just ordering meat.
And this geographical mapping, it extends directly to the most mundane items. It reveals these subtle yet defining differences that tell you immediately where a speaker is from, or at least which linguistic sphere they inhabit.
Take the terminology for a long sandwich. If you're in Boston, you might order a grinder. If you're in Philadelphia, it's a hoagie.
New York, a hero.
And elsewhere, it's simply a sub or a submarine sandwich. Each word is tied to a distinct local identity and history.
That level of detail is exactly what a C2 listener needs. It's the difference between being understood and sounding like an insider. Let's go back to the soft drink variation because that's just a beautiful example of regional dialect.
The carbonated beverage dichotomy is classic. You might be ordering a soda in the Northeast in California, a pop throughout the Midwest and Great Lakes region, or just a generic Coke used regardless of the flavor in the Deep South. The variation in that single, simple word, depending on your latitude in the United States, is a powerful indicator of these dialectal lines.
And what about items that have immigrant origins but have been fully Americanized?
That's a fascinating layer. Consider Mexican cuisine terminology in the Southwest versus the East Coast. On the West Coast, you might encounter highly specific terms like al pastor or carne asada, often with no translation, implying local fluency. And you can contrast this with broader, simplified menu terms in areas with less cultural density. Or look at New Orleans, where ordering a po' boy sandwich requires knowing its history and component parts and differentiating it from a traditional sub.
And this extends beyond just the food items to the colloquial usage and address forms used by the staff themselves.
Oh, absolutely. You must be prepared for y'all, used as the singular plural form of you, predominantly in the South and parts of the Southwest.
Yeah.
This contrasts sharply with the nearly universal you guys, which is used gender-neutrally in the North and in many metropolitan areas.
Great.
Recognizing, understanding, and even mirroring these address forms without sounding like you're mocking them signals a deeper cultural assimilation. And the dining environment, with its constant natural interactions, provides the perfect laboratory for observing and integrating these linguistic nuances.
So we've established the essential foundation: the preparation, the terminology, financial conventions, and cultural mapping. Now let's shift focus entirely to the dynamic interactions themselves, the opportunities for advanced practice that truly take you from C1 comprehension to C2 execution.
This is where we look at the relational aspects of the dining experience, starting with the omnipresent service with a smile culture and the persistent need for what we call phatic communication.
Phatic communication. That crucial social chit-chat designed purely to establish and maintain rapport rather than to convey concrete critical information.
Right.
In America, this mandatory small talk is a standard part of the interaction, especially from the server.
Servers are trained to inquire about your experience. Questions like, how is everything? Or do you have any exciting plans for the rest of the day? They're mandatory social rituals. But this is actually an excellent low-pressure practice opportunity for the learner.
It's the linguistic warm-up, right?
Yeah.
Where the conversation is predictable and the risk of error is low. You're encouraged to practice future tenses naturally or express nuanced opinions outside of the stress of the initial order.
And instead of just replying good, which is transactional, the C2 learner is encouraged to elevate the exchange to a relational level by using descriptive and appreciative responses. This shows that you are present in the conversation, not just performing a functional task.
So give us an example of an elevated exchange.
Moving beyond that minimal response is key. Instead of simply saying, it was fine, you might say, the ambiance was truly exquisite. Or, when discussing the meal, the halibut was cooked to perfection, so tender and flaky. If they ask about your plans, you can tie it back. It was the perfect fuel. Now we're off to the American Museum of Natural History. That uses descriptive adjectives and connects multiple conversational threads.
That significantly elevates the exchange. Okay, now for the true high-stakes moment. The section that demands the most linguistic finesse when things inevitably go wrong. We need to talk about the art of the polite complaint.
Ah, yes. Mastering assertiveness wrapped in layers and layers of politeness. Diplomacy is absolutely vital when something goes awry, whether it's a cold dish or a 30-minute delay. The goal is resolution without conflict, and that requires specific, highly structured linguistic tools.
Let's contrast the low-level transactional response with the high-level C2-level diplomatic response that actually demands respect and gets a resolution.
A low-level response is just a blunt statement. This is cold. Take it back. It's accurate, but it's socially abrupt and confrontational. The advanced linguistic model requires cushioning the complaint within a framework of apology and request.
So give us the model language. What demonstrates that advanced command and leads to a resolution?
The C2 learner should deploy a diplomatic structure that uses softeners and modal verbs. You start with the apology. I'm terribly sorry to be a bother, and I realize how busy you are, but my side dish is unfortunately rather lukewarm.
Oh, okay.
Could it possibly be reheated or perhaps replaced with a fresh serving?
Notice how many layers of linguistic tooling are packed into that single request. You start with the apology to acknowledge the imposition. You use mitigating language like rather lukewarm instead of the starch cold. And critically, you use modal verbs, could it possibly be, which transforms a demand into a deferential request.
But the C2 learner should be prepared to go further, especially if the mistakes significantly affected the experience, say, a long, unjustified wait time. This requires negotiation.
Now we're in high-level diplomacy. How does a C2 learner subtly negotiate for compensation, like a comped item or a discount, without sounding demanding?
You frame the issue not as a demand, but as a shared problem that requires compensation for the inconvenience caused, you might say. We truly appreciate your attention to this, but given the 40-minute wait we experienced after ordering, could we perhaps discuss a small adjustment to the total bill, or maybe have the dessert complimentary as an apology for the delay? This language is measured, it's polite, and it clearly connects the inconvenience to the requested resolution.
That is truly the difference between being understood and being respected, and actually achieving a desirable outcome. And this same diplomatic assertiveness applies to the language of modifications and substitutions.
Indeed. When modifying a dish, you have to be prepared to discuss potential financial adjustments, which brings us to the key specific vocabulary: upcharge.
That's a vital functional term. If you don't know the word upcharge, you might be caught off guard by an unexpected increase on your bill, which can lead to confusion and a strained interaction at the end of the meal.
The C2 learner should frame their modification request as a question that demonstrates command of both the language and the restaurant system. The model question here is, I'd like to substitute the mashed potatoes for the seasonal roasted vegetables. Could you please confirm if there is an associated upcharge for that modification?
It acknowledges the economic reality of the request right up front. That's a clear sign of high-level social and linguistic intelligence. It demonstrates you understand that flexibility often comes at a price.
And finally, given the high flexibility of American establishments, the importance of clear, unambiguous articulation for dietary accommodations just absolutely paramount.
American restaurants are generally quite amenable to modifying dishes, vegan, gluten-free specific allergies. But the learner must fully understand the difference in weight between clarity and preference.
Correct. The weight carried by your statement is crucial, especially in a high-stakes health scenario. You have to contrast the gravity of saying, I have a severe tree nut allergy, so I need to know if this kitchen handles almond flour, with the simple, I'd prefer not to have the cheese.
The first one signals a medical necessity that requires immediate kitchen procedural changes to prevent cross-contamination. The second one is just a simple personal preference.
And miscommunication here can have serious health consequences, which really underscores the literal high stakes of this interaction. The C2 learner must use precise technical language regarding food preparation to ensure safety, perhaps asking, could you confirm that the fryer oil used for the fries is not also used for any gluten-containing items? That shows technical and linguistic command.
So what's truly fascinating here is that the restaurant functions as a perfect, dynamic microcosm of society. The environment offers incredibly rich, unsolicited learning opportunities that you can capitalize on just by being present and keenly observant.
We've talked extensively about the active participation, ordering, complaining, negotiating, but the passive learning available is equally powerful. You don't always have to be speaking to be learning at a C2 level.
Absolutely. The value of detailed observation, discrete observation, what we called auditory voyeurism, is immense. You should be studying the nonverbal body language between staff and patrons and listening carefully to colloquial usage in real-time interactions without the pressure of having to respond immediately.
But I still love that term, auditory voyeurism. It's secretly eavesdropping for educational purposes. What specifically should the learner be listening for in those passive moments?
Listen for register shifts. Observe how the server speaks to the kitchen staff versus how they speak to the customer. The language used with the kitchen will be faster, more technical, and filled with shorthand and jargon, a fantastic insight into professional English. Then listen for how the server shifts back to the more polite, formal register when they address the table.
That shift in register is a C2 skill in itself, knowing when to move from casual to formal and back.
Exactly. This passive observation is also where you truly refine your understanding of phrasal verbs, filler words, and idiomatic usage in natural speech. You can listen to how native speakers phrase their most basic requests and note the subtle differences in formality, timing, and rhythm.
For example, listening to the difference between a table saying, can I get X, which is very casual, versus I'll have Y, which is slightly more assertive and transactional.
Versus we're thinking about the salmon, which is tentative.
The ability to analyze those subtle differences in intent and dynamic without being actively engaged in the conversation is essential. The C2 learner needs to be able to select the most appropriate linguistic style for any given context, and observation provides the data for that decision. It allows you to build a comprehensive sociolinguistic map of interaction.
This has been incredibly comprehensive. We've covered everything from online menu preparation and the physics of tipping to diplomatic negotiation and the deep study of regional dialects.
Indeed. We have approached the dining experience as a full, immersive, multi-layered language workshop.
So what does this all mean? We've accumulated all this detailed knowledge. What is the ultimate actionable takeaway for the learner who's trying to achieve advanced proficiency?
The overarching strategy is simple, though the execution is complex. You have to internalize the fact that every meal in an American restaurant is an active linguistic workshop. You must be brave enough to deviate from the comfortable path, you must be relentlessly curious about unfamiliar terms, and you must treat every single interaction, whether you're deciphering a complex ingredient, calculating a precise gratuity, or confidently articulating a medical restriction, as an active exercise in refining your C2 proficiency.
It's a holistic integration of knowledge. The menu is a vocabulary test, the server interaction is a grammar and diplomacy test, and the payment process is a cultural and mathematical assessment. The reward, of course, is both a great meal and a substantial measurable leap forward in fluency and cultural competence.
Well said. The ultimate goal here is not just to feed the body, but to truly nourish the mind by treating these mandatory social rituals as targeted, high-value language practice.
Right. And this raises an important question. If advanced language acquisition requires constantly interacting with complex texts, understanding nuanced social and economic conventions, and mastering diplomatic assertion under pressure, where else in your everyday life are you already navigating high-stakes classrooms that you could be consciously treating as opportunities for linguistic advancement?
That's a great point.
Think about the linguistic complexity of navigating public transit systems, the specific jargon required when you're interacting with customer service hotlines, or even the subtle power dynamics involved in participating in a complicated video call with industry-specific terminology.
That's a powerful thought to leave the listener with. The crucial realization that the most rigorous learning opportunities are everywhere, hidden inside the most mundane, transactional moments. That shift in perspective is the true key to C2 mastery. Thank you for joining us on this culinary and linguistic deep dive.
Until next time, keep practicing your polite negotiations, master your upcharges, and bon appetit to your continued journey toward advanced fluency. Welcome back to the deep dive. We often dedicate our time to unpacking these really dense technical reports.
Synthesizing complex academic research, things like that.
Right. But sometimes the greatest linguistic challenge, the real high-level intellectual exercise, isn't in astrophysics or macroeconomics.
No, not at all. It's in something that seems deceptively simple.
The act of ordering a meal in a foreign language.
That's absolutely right. Today, we are swapping the laboratory for the American restaurant.
Okay.
But, and this is important, we are totally bypassing the basic conversational scripts.
The hello, I would like the pasta.
Exactly. We're moving directly into the advanced linguistics and pragmatics of this whole environment.
So this is for you, the learner who's really pushing for that C2 fluency.
Yes. You're past the basics. Now you need the tools to navigate, the ambiguities, the unspoken rules, and the high-speed social dynamics that make American dining a real test of mastery.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We've been immersed in material that frames this whole experience not as just, a transaction for food,
right,
but as an intricate social dance.
A social dance, yeah. And it's choreographed with a hidden lexicon, nuanced, indirect speech acts, all these critical diplomatic strategies.
So our mission today?
The mission is to give you the specific tools you need to move confidently past just simple ordering and really master these subtleties.
Turning a simple meal into a masterclass in advanced English.
This is such a crucial distinction to make. The challenge for the advanced learner comes up precisely when their textbook English, which is, grammatically perfect, it just fails to translate directly into the dynamic, pressurized environment of a restaurant.
We're talking about the gap between literal meaning and cultural intent.
Exactly. And if you can confidently navigate the complexities of a restaurant, you're showing a level of cultural literacy that transfers to almost any other high-stakes social setting.
Like a negotiation or a complex business meeting.
You got it.
So this deep dive is your linguistic shortcut. We're delivering the specific vocabulary and the contextual understanding you need to handle everything from menu confusion to making a polite but firm complaint.
It's all about making sure your sophisticated grasp of grammar is matched by an equally sophisticated grasp of social intent.
Let's jump right in where the confusion so often starts, with the menu itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so for many people learning a new language, especially if you're a visual learner, there's this really common tendency to rely on visual cues.
Oh, absolutely. The classic laminated menus with the glossy photos of every dish.
Exactly. That picture becomes your linguistic crutch. If you don't know the word for au gratin, You can at least point to the picture of the cheesy potatoes.
It's an understandable strategy to start with, but it's a strategy that immediately, and I mean immediately, backfires when you move into a more stylized or high-end American restaurant.
Because those places often use these text-heavy, minimalist menus.
Right. They do it on purpose to project a sense of sophistication and, culinary artistry.
And when that visual crutch vanishes, and you have this dense text combined with intentionally imprecise language, that's when the research says you get instant linguistic panic.
That panic is real. It sets in because you've lost your anchor. You realize you are completely reliant on language alone.
And worse, the language is structured to be kind of opaque. It's trying to sell a feeling, a vibe, not just a list of ingredients.
Exactly. And the most common culprit in this whole linguistic minefield is the use of vague descriptors.
Let me guess, seasonal vegetables.
The classic, most cited example, seasonal vegetables. Now, when a native speaker reads that, they experience what we might call delightful vagueness.
Delightful vagueness, I like that.
It carries all these positive connotations.
Yeah.
Freshness, the chef's expertise in picking what's best right now, variety. You sort of place your trust in the kitchen.
Yet we assume the chef is going to pick something good, maybe blistered shishito peppers in the summer or a root vegetable medley in the winter. We're okay with the surprise.
But for you, the advanced learner, this same term is described as a nebulous term that could mean anything.
Because you're trying to get definable information. You're making a commitment, right?
A financial one, a dietary one, maybe you have allergies or just strong preferences. The native speaker accepts the implied quality, but the learner is paralyzed by the lack of concrete definition.
You need to know, am I getting steamed broccoli versus glazed carrots?
Yes. And those two choices are vastly different culinary preparations. That ambiguity is just paralyzing.
And it seems like the higher the price of the menu, the fewer specifics you get.
You're paying for the chef's creative license, essentially. But that creative license is exactly what creates the information deficit for someone who needs certainty.
So you can't just sit there in silence or guess. That's not C2 fluency.
Not at all. The situation demands a linguistic solution. This is where we introduce the critical skill of diplomatic inquiry, which lets you regain control of the information flow.
Before we get to that, can we touch on another confusing thing on menus? The use of gerunds, the ing words.
Oh, that's a great point. It's an advanced observation.
You see pan-searing salmon or slow-roasting lamb.
Yes. Those gerunds, searing, roasting, grilling, they're active verbs, and they are used intentionally to emphasize the process of preparation.
Why? What's the point?
Because the process implies quality, skill, and freshness. When a menu says pan-seared, it suggests the action is happening now, or very recently. It shows the care and effort of the kitchen.
So as a learner, you're not just dealing with vague nouns like vegetables. You're also dealing with verbs being used as these evocative adjectives. They're trying to sell you the experience.
It just adds another layer of mental processing. If you don't instantly get that wood-fired pizza is just pizza from a specific oven, you might waste time trying to figure out what wood-fired is as an ingredient.
It's a lot to juggle. So back to our seasonal vegetables dilemma. We need that perfect phrase, the one that cuts through the vagueness without making you sound like you don't trust the chef.
Okay, the ultimate actionable phrase, the one you need, is this. Could you elaborate on the preparation of the seasonal vegetables?
Okay, let's break that down. It's very specific and very diplomatic.
Notice the careful choice of words. You're not asking what the vegetables are.
Which might sound a little suspicious.
Right. You are asking the server to elaborate on the preparation.
And that reframes the whole interaction. You're not demanding a simple list. You're asking them to elaborate, which positions them as an expert on the culinary process.
Precisely. And the psychological benefit for you, the guest, is huge. By using this assertive yet respectful phrase, you signal that you're a serious, knowledgeable customer who is just seeking comprehensive information.
You've seized control of the transaction with precise language.
And that confidence, not fearing ambiguity, but knowing how to politely dissolve it, that is a hallmark of C2 fluency.
It turns a confusing transaction into a smooth, communicative consultation. And as we're about to see, the answer to that question often leads to the next linguistic challenge. Okay, so we've successfully navigated the vague menu, we used our diplomatic inquiry, the server comes back with the answer, and bam.
You've hit the advanced listening test. The analysis describes this as one of the most arduous aspects of the whole dining experience.
Right, because you might have near-native comprehension in a quiet classroom, but a noisy, high-energy restaurant. That's a completely different level of fluency.
It's a real-time stress test. It's the difference between studying a blueprint and navigating a bustling construction site.
Suddenly all this ambient noise, the speed, the unpredictable variables, they just destroy your practice comprehension skills.
And American English has so much regional variation. Think about the challenges. We talked about a thick southern drawl.
Where the vowels are different, the pace can be sort of melodic. It's hard to track individual words.
And you contrast that with a rapid-fire New York cadence, where syllables get compressed or dropped entirely. The tone might be more clipped, especially if the server is busy.
And then there's Boston with the famous missing R's. Or a server in California who uses a whole different set of casual idioms. The acoustic variability is just huge.
And the stakes are incredibly high, pragmatically speaking. You're not just trying to catch small talk. You're listening for crucial information about specials or allergy warnings, or maybe that the dish you want is sold out.
Right. If you miss that key part where they said the fish special is gone, you risk ordering something unavailable, which just leads to another awkward interaction.
So when your comprehension fails, just for a moment, you need a tool, a diplomatic tool to hit the reset button without causing offense.
This is where so many learners just kind of nod and smile and pretend they understood.
And hope for the best, yeah. Which is exactly what we need to avoid.
We need a way to tactfully ask for repetition, but the key is framing the issue correctly, putting the responsibility on yourself.
The key script we derive from all the successful strategies is this. My apologies, I'm still attuning my ear to the local accent. Could you repeat that slightly slower?
That is strategic gold. Let's talk about why that phrasing is so effective.
Okay, so it works on a few levels. First, my apologies immediately disarms any potential tension.
It's soft.
Very. Second, the crucial part, I'm still attuning my ear to the local accent. That frames the issue not as the server speaking poorly, but as your personal, ongoing learning process.
It shows cultural awareness and effort. The server immediately gets it. This is an international guest who is trying hard and respectfully asking for help.
Exactly. It avoids any hint of blame, which dramatically improves the interaction. It often encourages the server to speak a bit more clearly, maybe even share a little friendly comment about their region.
It creates a moment of cooperation. This is so much more sophisticated than just saying, pardon me.
Yeah.
It's a clear marker of real linguistic confidence.
And once we've managed to decode the accent, we hit the final hurdle of this section.
It's specialized idiomatic language. The benevolent hospitality lexicon, as the material calls it.
This is the internal slang of the service industry, and we have to understand it because it often dictates the economic reality of your experience.
Right. We already talked about the classic on the house.
Meaning complimentary, free of charge, the establishment is absorbing the cost.
But for true C2 fluency, we need to know a few more terms that define the operational reality. Let's talk about one for availability. 86 mentioned.
Yes. If a server comes back and says, my apologies, the special is 86 pence, a learner could be completely lost.
That's just a number.
86 is a historical code, probably from old dining terminology, but what it means pragmatically is we are completely out of that item. It's sold out, unavailable.
And it's used because it's fast and efficient. If you hear the lobster bisque is 86 pence, you know you need to pick something else. Fast.
Another critical term for understanding service flow is running a bit behind.
The diplomatic shield phrase.
Exactly. If you ask about your delayed main course, the server might say, the kitchen is running a bit behind tonight. It's a soft admission of a delay.
But it avoids pointing fingers. They're not saying the cook forgot your order.
Right. They're just conveying a systemic delay with a gentle idiom. It manages your expectations gently.
And a third one, maybe more internal, but you might overhear it.
In the weeds.
Yes. A server might mutter to the host, I'm totally in the weeds with table 7.
And what they're expressing there is operational overload. They are overwhelmed, swamped, highly stressed because they have too many things to do at once.
So why is this important for you, the advanced learner, to recognize?
Because if you understand the server is in the weeds, you can adjust your own expectations. Maybe you delay asking for that water refill for a minute.
You become a more cooperative and informed participant in the social dance.
By mastering on the house, 86, and in the weeds, you move beyond just understanding the words of the transaction. You start to understand the economic and operational pressures of the industry.
And that is C2 mastery.
So we've ordered, we've navigated the jargon, and now we move into the next phase of the meal.
The cleanup, which is surprisingly often the most nuanced linguistic test. This is where literal meaning and intent just completely diverge.
We are talking about the quintessential server phrase that always trips up learners.
Are you still working on that?
That's the one.
If you take it literally, word for word, it sounds like eating is labor or a task.
Mm-hmm. Why is the server asking about my work performance? It's jarring.
Very.
But pragmatically, it is one of the most crucial and polite indirect speech acts in American hospitality. It is a socially coded way of saying one thing and one thing only.
May I clear your plate?
That's it. The polite indirectness is the key to upholding the social contract. The server has to clear the plate to keep the table clean and move the meal along.
But they absolutely cannot do it without your permission.
So asking if you're working on it is the perfect way to inquire about the status of your eating while leaving the final decision and therefore the control completely with you, the guest.
This indirect intent is so important that the analysis stresses it is crucial for C2 fluency.
It is. If you only understand the literal definition of work, you miss the whole social contract. The server is obligated to ask in a non-intrusive way.
And if you give a confused answer like, yes, I am eating, you just break the flow because you didn't recognize their real goal.
But let's dig a little deeper into what that phrase implies, beyond just clearing the plate, the timing of when they ask. That's also important, right?
Absolutely. The question isn't just about your plate. It's about pacing the meal and ultimately turning the table for the next guests.
So in a really busy restaurant, the server asking that question early is a signal. It means the kitchen is ready with your next course, or the restaurant needs that table back soon.
That one phrase is communicating the whole restaurant's internal rhythm.
Which means your response has to be equally nuanced. A blunt no or a simple yes is just not good enough for an advanced learner.
You need a response that respects the server's job while also asserting your right to linger or finish at your own pace.
So, I'm still enjoying it, thank you, is a good start. But for true C2 fluency, we can elevate it.
Okay, how?
Consider something like, I'm just savoring the last few bites, but thank you for checking.
Oh, that's good. Savoring. It adds warmth.
Or even just resting, I'll need a minute.
Just resting is great. It's concise and clearly says, I'm pausing, but I'm not done.
And the key, always, is adding that thank you for checking.
Because it validates their attentiveness.
This sophisticated response structure does so many things at once. It affirms the meal was good, it clearly communicates your status, and it respects the server's role. Mastering this is how you move from the transactional sphere into the relational sphere of communication.
And understand that the whole experience is relational is crucial for what comes next.
The highest stakes linguistic challenge.
The art of the grievance.
A linguistic tightrope walk.
Okay, this is where the advanced learner often hits the biggest psychological wall. The analysis is right when it points out that many learners are conflict averse.
Especially if they come from cultures that value harmony over direct confrontation.
So they might just suffer through an inedible meal to avoid the awkwardness of a complaint.
That fear is powerful. You're worried about appearing rude or demanding or ungrateful.
But in the context of American dining, addressing an issue with tact isn't an attack.
Not at all. It's a necessary part of the feedback and service recovery loop. We need to frame this as an essential exercise in assertiveness and tact.
Asserting your rights as a consumer while using maximum politeness.
Exactly. Let's start with the objective error. This is the less complex one, a factual mistake.
Right. The steak you ordered medium rare arrives well done.
The strategy here is to not get emotional, but to objectify the error. You need to make it clear the complaint is about a verifiable fact. The steak's temperature versus what you ordered, not a personal criticism.
So we need a script that's factual, polite, and most importantly, focused on the solution.
The impeccable script is, excuse me, I ordered this medium rare, but it appears to be quite overcooked. Would it be possible to have this rectified?
Let's break down the mechanics of that. Excuse me, is a neutral way to get their attention.
The statement of fact, ordered medium rare, appears overcooked, uses neutral language. You're avoiding judgmental words like ruined or burned.
And that final question, would it be possible to have this rectified? That feels like the most critical part.
It is. You are not demanding a new steak. You're initiating the process of correction. You're giving the server permission to start the service recovery mechanism, which empowers them to do their job instead of making them feel defensive.
Okay, so the server apologizes, takes the plate. What happens next that an advanced learner needs to be ready for?
Ancillary service recovery.
Meaning?
The goal in American service recovery isn't just to fix the food, it's to smooth over the social discomfort of the mistake.
So the server or manager might offer something on the house, a drink, maybe an appetizer, while you wait for the new steak.
Exactly. And knowing how to accept that gracefully, that there's very kind of you, thank you, is part of the assertive tact we're talking about.
Now let's pivot to the trickier one. Subjective dislike. No objective error. The fish is cooked perfectly, but the sauce is, unexpectedly sweet and you just can't eat it.
This is where we have to introduce the commitment rule. The sources are very clear on this.
Okay.
If you, the customer, have consumed half the dish, you are generally culturally committed to it.
Why half? What's the logic?
Because it's the point where the restaurant can't reserve the dish, and it suggests you ate enough that you must have tolerated it, even if you didn't love it. The economic contract shifts.
So timing is absolutely crucial here. If it's unpalatable to you personally, the objection has to be immediate.
Within the first 1 or 2 bites, waiting is committing.
Okay, so you take that first bite, you realize it's just wrong for your palate. The approach has to express that expectation gap without attacking the chef's creation.
The polite script for this focuses on your internal feeling. This isn't quite what I anticipated. Could I possibly switch to something else?
Notice there's no factual assertion there. You're not saying the food is bad.
You're just stating that the reality didn't align with your expectation. And you're requesting a switch. This relies entirely on the culture of American establishments that prioritize customer satisfaction.
Right. They want the repeat business, the positive review. They'll often accommodate a switch because of that commercial priority.
But, and this is the key high-level insight, there's a financial distinction. If the issue is purely subjective, they aren't always economically obligated to absorb the entire cost.
The material says they might accommodate the switch, though perhaps with a slight charge for the first dish.
Exactly. And for the truly fluent guest, you can even proactively manage that expectation.
How would that sound?
You could say, this isn't quite right for me. I'd love to switch to the chicken, and I understand if I'm charged a small amount for the initial plate.
Wow. That statement shows so much respect for the restaurant's economics. It shifts you from a demanding customer to a highly informed, cooperative one.
That proactive ownership of the economic consequence is a major leap in communication skill. It means you've moved beyond fearing confrontation and into the domain of assertive, informed negotiation.
We've made it. The final act. The logistical finale. We've eaten, we've socialized, maybe we even navigated a complaint. Now comes the bill.
It seems simple, but for groups, this is where complex dynamics and, post-meal fatigue can collide.
For group dining, there's a critical phrase.
Separate checks, it's your best friend. American dining culture is very accommodating to splitting bills.
But the courtesy factor here is all about timing.
It is. The material stresses that you need to notify the server before ordering that the bill is going to be split. This isn't just polite.
It's an act of high fluency. It shows you understand the operational logistics of the restaurant.
It's purely administrative. If you spring the complex mathematics on them at the end, the server has to manually separate every single item across maybe 4 or 5 different tabs in their system.
Which delays their service to other tables. It's a real headache for them.
But by saying separate checks when you order drinks, you let them track everything separately from the start. The process becomes seamless and efficient for everyone.
So, using that phrase early makes you an easy, polite table. It signals you respect their workflow. But speaking of workflow, we have to address the final administrative note.
The thing that causes the most confusion for international visitors.
Gratuity.
Tipping.
Yes. The complexity of American tipping is huge, but the final check is simple. Double check your bill for the gratuity line.
Why is this so crucial?
Because in many places, especially for large groups, usually 6 or more people, the gratuity is automatically calculated and included on the bill. It's called auto gratuity.
And the restaurant does this to protect the server, to make sure they're compensated fairly when a large group might forget or shortchange the tip.
The danger is not seeing that line labeled auto gratuity or service charge. If you miss it, you might then calculate your own 18 or 20% tip and add it on top.
Accidentally tipping 35 or 40%, a massive unintended financial outlay. So checking for that auto gratuity line is the final handshake of the transaction. It ensures you fulfill the cultural requirement without duplicating it.
Okay, let's transition from the mechanics of payment to a broader point. The idea that dining can be a cultural exploration, not just, a biological necessity.
Right. The material suggests being an adventurous eater is actually a linguistic strategy.
How so?
Well, if you only stick to things, like plain chicken or a standard salad, you cut off an entire avenue for rich, descriptive dialogue.
Regional cuisine forces interaction.
Think about the specific dishes we mentioned. Alligator tail and grits in the South, chowders in the Northeast, or dishes with cactus in the Southwest.
These are culinary artifacts. They tell a story about local history and ecology.
And by showing curiosity about them, you force the server to move beyond their basic script and engage with you as a kind of cultural guide.
So if you see something unusual, like alligator tail, and you order it, you're almost guaranteed to start a conversation.
But the key is asking the right question to deepen that interaction.
And the example inquiry provided is, what is the texture of alligator like?
That's brilliant. It's brilliant because you're asking about sensory experience, not just how it's cooked.
A question like that forces the server to use descriptive adjectives, maybe compare it to other things.
It's like chicken, but denser, or like fish, but meatier. That interaction strengthens your linguistic muscles way more than just confirming an order.
And this leads to the big idea. The essence of advanced language learning isn't just about grammar or vocabulary.
It's about connection. The meal provides the stage for that connection. When you ask about the texture of alligator, you're asking the server to share a piece of their regional knowledge. You're fostering a human moment.
And we can take this idea beyond the restaurant. The source material briefly mentions the potluck in the Midwest.
Which is a critical comparison. The potluck is the non-commercial cousin of the formal dining experience.
It highlights that even when money isn't involved, shared food dictates a complex, unspoken social contract.
The contract of a Midwest potluck is simple but firm. You contribute a dish. It's a reciprocal expectation. Showing up empty-handed is a major violation of an unspoken cultural rule.
So the language changes. In a restaurant, it's about payment and service. At a potluck, it's about contribution and gracious acceptance.
Yes, and if someone compliments your dish, the C2 level response isn't, "Thank you, it's perfect." It's often a kind of linguistic humility.
Oh, it was nothing, just a quick salad, or I just grabbed something from the store.
You deflect the praise to maintain social balance. And even turning down food has its own diplomacy. Instead of, "I don't like that," you might say, "Everything looks wonderful, but I'm absolutely stuffed."
You reject the food with kindness to maintain the harmony of the event.
Whether you're decoding a vague menu or figuring out what casserole to bring, the confidence you gain by mastering these pragmatic rules of dining translates directly into confidence in almost every other social sphere.
We have completed a pretty comprehensive journey today, moving from the paralysis of seasonal vegetables to the assertive tact of making a complaint.
The tools we've covered, diplomatic inquiries, understanding indirect intent, solution-focused communication, these are the keys to unlocking high-level social success in American culture.
The freedom you gain is really profound. The ability to confidently ask for specifics, to not be afraid of an ambiguous menu.
And to use those perfectly calibrated phrases like, "I'm just savoring the last few bites, but thank you for checking," that shows a fluency that goes way beyond vocabulary. It shows true cultural literacy.
It's about being an active, observant, and highly polite participant in this whole thing.
And recognizing the operational realities of the service industry, treating the entire experience not as a chore, but as a complex reciprocal performance.
Ultimately, that's why it is a complex social dance.
And this knowledge gives you the confidence to succeed in these high-stakes situations. You're no longer just reacting to the language. You are fully participating in shaping the experience.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to chew on this week. We've established that asking for specificity and clarifying intent is absolutely key in a restaurant.
You have to ask, what is the preparation of the seasonal vegetables?
So consider this broader application. Where else in your daily life are you accepting that same seasonal vegetables level of ambiguity?
It's a great question.
Are you accepting vague metrics in a work meeting because you don't want to interrupt and ask for clear numbers?
Are you letting a specialized idiom slide in a new conversation because you're afraid of slowing down the flow?
We encourage you to take the assertive, tactful inquiry you mastered today in the dining room and apply it to all new information you encounter.
Don't just settle for delightfully vague if it leaves a gap in your understanding. Demand the context, clarify the preparation, ensure full comprehension.
Because that is the final essential step in connecting deeply with the language, the culture, and the people who speak it.
It's time to move beyond assuming and start asserting your right to full, specific knowledge.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time. Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of information, your reading list, your research, and transform it into actionable, engaging knowledge.
It's great to be here.
Today we're really dismantling a pervasive myth. It's this idea that there's a single, unified American dining culture.
Right. That notion is, it's a profound oversimplification. It's probably driven by national branding, big chain restaurants, that sort of thing.
But it's completely contradicted by reality.
Completely. The cultural landscape, it just shifts so dramatically depending on where you are. The invisible rules, the social interactions around food, even the words you need to use, and the expectations for how you participate. It all changes the moment you cross a state line, sometimes even a county line.
Exactly. And the sources we've been looking at, they highlight just how crucial these regional nuances are. It's not just about what you order.
No, not at all.
It's about how you eat it,
Yeah.
how you communicate what you want, what you expect. If you're trying to navigate this vast country, mastering the menu is really only half the battle.
That's a perfect way to put it. Food is. It's the most immediate, the most accessible, and honestly, often the most surprising marker of a regional identity.
More than just menu differences, you're saying.
Oh, far more. It's about the underlying social contract of the meal itself. So for you, the learner trying to acquire that cultural fluency, we've seen two primary areas of focus emerge from this material.
Okay.
First, etiquette, which, defines the social boundaries, what's acceptable. And second, specialized ingredients, which gives you that adventurous vocabulary you need for a genuine connection.
Our mission today is to show how understanding these regional shifts turns the simple act of dining into really a masterclass in cultural fluency and rapid knowledge acquisition.
And we're going to use some really specific details in the sources to anchor these complex ideas.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the sociological lens of regional dining, we're going to begin by looking at the unspoken rules of eating together.
The social geography.
Right, the social geography of communal etiquette. Let's jump straight into that. We're moving beyond what ingredients are popular, and we're focusing on the physical act of eating together. How that ranges so dramatically from, expressions of deep intimacy and sharing
All the way to
strict social boundaries that should just never, ever be crossed, all depending on where you are.
And the sources really zoom in on the American South as a starting point. It's a place where hospitality is not just a polite suggestion. It's almost this deeply ingrained ancestral cultural expectation.
It's part of the regional DNA, as one source put it.
It absolutely is. And you see this play out in one very specific, very physical action at the dining table.
The offering of a bite.
Exactly. The offering of a bite of your meal to a dining companion. It seems like such a small gesture, right?
So small. But the sources, they really emphasize the huge cultural weight this carries in the South.
Absolutely. In that Southern tradition, especially in a relaxed setting, family, friends, that sort of thing, this action is considered profoundly polite. It's generous.
It symbolizes something deeper.
It symbolizes intimacy and sharing. It's a nonverbal confirmation that says, I am comfortable with you. My space, my experience, my food, for this moment, it's communal.
So it's a way of affirming a connection.
A genuine way, yeah. It's like saying, my joy in this meal is actually enriched by sharing this flavor with you. It's a beautiful little ritual, really.
I think the reason this is so vital for you to grasp is because of the immediate contrast the material provides. What happens to that gesture when we move north or, into a more rigid, formal environment?
And that's the crucial sociological distinction we have to emphasize. Because while sharing a bite is a sign of connection and openness in the South,
right.
If you take that exact same action, you reach over, uninvited, and take a forkful of your companion's dish in a non-Southern environment.
Like a business lunch in New York.
A formal business lunch, a first meeting, the perception just flips entirely, 180 degrees.
It changes from an invitation to connect into an act of aggression?
It can be viewed explicitly as a breach of boundaries. That's the phrase the source uses. Or even a sign of profound disrespect for personal space and property.
Wow.
Yeah. You might unintentionally communicate a real lack of sophistication or professional distance. The server might even rush over wondering if there was a problem with the food.
Because that encroachment is so unusual.
So unusual. The same physical action results in two completely opposite readings. It goes from welcome to warning.
That is the ultimate linguistic challenge without even speaking a word, isn't it?
It is. A simple gesture carries entirely different social weight depending on the context. So if you're a visitor, you need to understand that this isn't about being stingy or generous.
It's about reading the room.
It's about reading the room and respecting the regional social contract, which it prioritizes different values.
And this prioritization is deeply historical, right?
Oh, very. Southern hospitality often stems from agrarian roots.
Well,
Where mutual aid and open-door policies were literally necessary for survival and for community bonding.
that makes sense.
Now, contrast that with modern, often fast-paced urban or corporate cultures where what's valued? Efficiency, clearly defined personal space. Those things are valued above unsolicited intimacy.
So knowing this protects you. It protects you from accidentally sending a signal of either, I don't know, unwelcome closeness or just outright rudeness.
Depending on your location, yeah.
Yeah.
It requires a high level of situational awareness, which is what mastering these regional rules provides a shortcut to.
So let's make this practical. In a casual setting in, say, South Carolina, if someone offers you a bite, it's a positive affirmation.
Take it. It's a compliment.
But in a corporate lunch in Chicago,
You keep your utensils strictly on your own side of that inimitable plate divider, unless you are explicitly invited otherwise.
that's the rule of thumb. What if? What if you are offered a bite in the South, but you genuinely don't want it? How do you decline politely?
That's a great question. The polite way to decline is often to praise your own dish instead. You deflect by complimenting.
So you don't reject the offer itself.
Exactly. You don't reject the intimacy. You'd say something like, oh, that looks incredible, but I'm completely lost in this fried catfish right now. This is amazing.
Ah, so you maintain that shared enjoyment of the food without actually rejecting the gesture.
Precisely. It keeps the positive energy flowing. It's a very subtle but very important social skill.
That's great practical advice. Okay, let's transition now. From that sort of intimate one-on-one sharing to a completely different form of communal dining found right in the heart of the country.
The Midwest.
To the Midwest and the cultural phenomenon of the potluck.
The potluck is, you could argue it's a cornerstone of Midwestern social life. It's especially prevalent in community centers, churches, neighborhood gatherings.
And we need to define it clearly because the term itself, as you said, contains the etiquette rules.
It does. A potluck is a communal gathering where each guest contributes a dish to be shared by all the attendees. It's not a party where the host provides everything.
The sources note that this practice is deeply rooted in the social fabric of the Midwest. And that phrase suggests it's much more than just a casual way to eat.
Oh, much more. It's a foundation of community building and shared responsibility. It's not just about convenience. It's a vital mechanism for community cohesion. And in a way, it's a form of social insurance.
Which means the rule associated with it is therefore absolute.
It is about as close to absolute as you can get in social etiquette. When you are invited to a potluck, you must, and I mean must, participate in the collective provision.
And that means bringing a real dish.
It means bringing something substantial that will feed the group. And often you should bring the serving utensils for that dish too. Don't make the host scramble for a serving spoon.
So showing up empty-handed isn't just slightly awkward like you might experience at a dinner party in a big city.
Whoa.
The material implies it's a significant cultural misstep. It has real social consequences. So why is that failure to contribute so meaningful here?
Because it violates the foundational contract of the community. The whole potluck system is built entirely on reciprocity and shared labor.
Everyone shares the burden.
Everyone shares the burden of cooking, of setup, of cost, and everyone shares the reward of variety and sustenance. So by showing up without a contribution, you are indicating, well, it's not just a lack of understanding.
It's a refusal.
It's a refusal to participate in that fundamental social exchange. You become, as the analysis suggests, a passive receiver rather than an active participant in the community structure.
Okay, and what does that passive reception actually look like in practice? What's the social consequence that you're trying to avoid?
Well, the consequence isn't usually an outright confrontation. That classic Midwestern politeness would probably prevent that.
Right.
Instead, you face a slow, painful social isolation. It's the looks you get, the subtle avoidance. It's a kind of passive-aggressive judgment.
So you might find people are less likely to strike up a conversation with you.
Exactly. Or maybe they'll hesitate to invite you to the next event. The failure to bring a dish signals that you just don't get it.
Yeah.
You don't grasp that food is community currency here.
You become a burden.
You become a burden rather than a valued contributor. And that feeling of being an outsider or being the subject of that quiet scrutiny, that's exactly what the learner wants to sidestep.
That leads directly to the Depper aha moment the sources provide. The potluck is described as an exercise in cultural assimilation as much as it is about food.
Yes.
It's a performance of belonging.
It is. Assimilation here means demonstrating that you understand and accept the norms of the local social structure, where community effort is paramount.
So by bringing a dish.
By bringing a dish, and it doesn't have to be your grandmother's famous casserole, it could be a well-bought store-brand salad, you are performing a recognized act of integration.
It gives you immediate standing.
It really does. For someone learning how American society functions beyond the professional world, mastering the potluck dynamic is critical. It shows respect for their way of life.
And if you are trying to participate, the linguistic component is mandatory. You need the vocabulary to confirm your role and to avoid, 5 people bringing potato salad.
Absolutely. The learner must have the phrases needed to navigate the contribution aspect politely and proactively. And the most important phrase is just so simple.
What should I bring?
What should I bring? That phrase achieves 3 things simultaneously. It confirms your intent to participate, it shows humility and respect for the host's planning, and it prevents that logistical chaos.
Okay, but what if the host says, oh, don't worry about it, just bring yourself? Do you take them literally?
The classic test of cultural understanding. In a potluck context, especially in the Midwest, don't worry about it, often translates to just bring a small side dish or a dessert, but don't stress yourself out.
So you still bring something?
You still bring something. The polite response is to insist, but gently. Say, I'd really love to contribute something. Are you set on desserts, or could I bring a side salad? You have to show that willingness.
And if they still refuse?
If they still refuse, then you bring something non-food related. A high-quality 6-pack of craft soda, a bundle of nice paper towels, a bag of ice. Something useful that demonstrates contribution without violating their direct instruction.
That transitions the potluck experience from what could be a really confusing cultural minefield into a manageable social contract.
All just by knowing the right words and demonstrating the right intention. It's about participation, not perfection.
Now that we've established the rules of engagement for these social settings, let's move from communal etiquette to flavor boundaries. We need to arm you, our listener, with the specific vocabulary that will allow you to be a truly adventurous eater.
And more importantly, spark those valuable local conversations that really cement those cultural ties.
Right. This section focuses on providing you with specific, high-impact vocabulary related to regional American delicacies.
These are keywords. They enable not just ordering, but demonstrating an informed curiosity that locals really appreciate.
The sources acknowledge the sheer vastness and biodiversity of the U.S., which of course is reflected in the regional menus. So if you're feeling linguistically and gastronomically bold, what are the specific terms you need to know moving beyond the universally familiar?
We're looking for culinary keywords that act as geographical flags. They instantly place the diner within a very specific context, and these terms are often tied directly to the local ecosystem and history.
Okay, let's start back in the South, acknowledging that rich biodiversity there. We've discussed standard Southern comfort food and, in earlier materials, the concept of alligator tail. What's the next delicacy on the list for the adventurous eater?
The next key term is frog legs. Now, for many international diners, this immediately brings to mind classic French cuisine, right?
Right, escargot and frog legs.
Exactly. But here, in this context, they are a specific historical indicator of the American South.
Why are they so regionally specific to the U.S. South compared to the rest of the country?
Well, it connects directly to the ecosystem. I mean, much like alligator, frog legs are harvested from wetland areas. The bayous, the swamps, the river basins that are so common in states like Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida.
So it's a delicacy born of necessity and accessibility?
That's right. And preparing them, often batter-dipped and deep-fried, much like you would chicken, is a long-standing culinary tradition. It goes back to pioneer days, particularly as a good source of lean protein. Knowing this term immediately elevates you beyond just generic Southern comfort food and into specialized regional cuisine. It shows an awareness of the landscape.
Okay, so what should you expect them to taste like?
And that's where the culinary vocabulary comes in. The universal description, the one everyone uses, is that they taste like a cross between chicken and fish.
I've heard that.
It's very lean, slightly firm, and it's highly dependent on the preparation. If they are fried correctly, they should be crispy on the outside and very, very tender inside. Ordering them signals that you're ready to engage with the unique and sometimes, let's be honest, intimidating local environment.
Fantastic. Okay, moving geographically west now, we're transitioning from the swamp and wetland environment into the arid desert landscape of the Southwest.
Specifically Arizona and New Mexico. The local vocabulary shifts entirely.
Right. The Southwest requires a completely different vocabulary, one that's driven by indigenous flora. You mentioned we need two key terms here. The first is
Prickly pear.
which, as we noted, is a cactus fruit. But a basic definition isn't really enough for a deep dive. What's the prickly pear's significance, and what should you anticipate when you try it?
Its significance is that it directly reflects the indigenous landscape and local resilience. This is a fruit that thrives where very little else can.
Right.
It's been integrated into the local diet for centuries. You'll often see it in jams, jellies, candies, margaritas, of course, or as a glaze for meat. If you see it on a menu, you know you are eating cuisine that's dictated by the desert flora, its authentic locality.
And the flavor, what's the profile?
The flavor profile is complex and often surprising. It's generally described as a subtle blend, a taste of watermelon mixed with kiwi maybe, sometimes with a slight metallic or earthy undertone.
So it's not intensely sweet.
Not at all, but its texture is often soft and juicy, somewhat like a pear, which is where it gets the name. By ordering it, you're showing that you recognize the subtle influences of the southwestern climate on the menu.
That gives a much better mental anchor. What about the second and perhaps the most defining term for the Southwest?
That would have to be green chiles. This ingredient is not just important, it's culturally central.
Ubiquitous, one source said.
Dishes incorporating these are ubiquitous and absolutely essential in this region, particularly New Mexico. The annual chill harvest, which is usually in late summer or early autumn, is a full-blown cultural event. You can smell it.
You can smell it.
Oh yeah. You walk around and you get this unmistakable smoky aroma of chiles roasting in these big metal drums right outside the grocery stores. It's incredible.
So we're not just talking about a spice here. We're talking about a staple vegetable, a core identity marker.
Exactly. In a place like New Mexico, green chigue is treated less like a seasoning and more like a regional state of mind. They use it in sauces, stews, on burgers, in breakfast burritos, even in savory pastries.
And it has a specific kind of heat.
A very specific kind. It introduces this deep, earthy heat, which is very distinct from the sharp, fiery burn of, say, many Asian or Caribbean shells. It's more of a foundational flavor than a topping.
And this is where the vocabulary becomes truly active because it creates a necessary dialogue with your server.
Correct. The knowledge isn't passive reading, it's active participation through ordering. When you sit down in a New Mexican restaurant, particularly outside of the main tourist areas, you're almost guaranteed to be asked the defining regional question.
Red or green?
Red or green, meaning what kind of chili sauce do you want on your enchiladas, your burrito, your burger, whatever it is.
Okay, so break that down. Red versus green.
The green chiles are usually younger and fresher, and they deliver that earthy, savory taste we talked about. The red chiles are typically the same chile, but they're mature. They've been dried and processed into a sauce. It's often a little sweeter and sometimes hotter.
And knowing how to respond instantly marks you as someone who's engaged with the culture.
It really does. But the boldest answer, the one that really shows you know what you're doing, is Christmas. Christmas. Meaning you want both red and green sauce on your plate. If you say Christmas, the waiter knows you're not messing around. They'll give you a little nod of respect.
That is fantastic. It's the conversational equivalent of a secret handshake. It shows you've mastered the regional dialect.
It really is.
So we've mastered the swamp, the desert, and the chill preference. Now let's transition to the high-end saline markets of the West Coast.
Right. We're shifting our focus now to the Pacific Northwest and California, areas that are renowned for their highly specific marine bounty. The sources identify two primary vocabulary terms you must know here to appear knowledgeable about local sourcing.
We're talking about Dungeness crab and Pacific oysters.
Exactly. And these aren't just generic seafood terms. They represent specific, high-quality, regionally managed produce.
Right.
The Dungeness crab it's the undisputed superstar of many West Coast menus.
Why is that?
It's known for its sheer size, abundant meat, and a distinctly sweet, delicate flavor profile. It's often served very simply steamed or boiled, just to let that natural flavor shine.
And the Pacific oysters, how do they differ from, say, the popular East Coast Blue Point or Chesapeake varieties?
Well, the Pacific oyster is the world's most widely farmed oyster species, and it really dominates the West Coast market from Puget Sound down to Baja California. And their flavor is drastically different.
How so?
While Atlantic oysters can be kind of creamy and mild, Pacific oysters often have a much more intense flavor, sometimes described as briny, metallic, or having a hint of melon or cucumber on the finish.
Wow.
So knowing to specifically ask for the Pacific variety shows that you understand the local sourcing and the flavor variations that are dictated by the Pacific's colder, nutrient-rich waters.
Now, here is where the application of this vocabulary becomes socially powerful. The source material provides a fantastic insight into the secondary benefit of ordering these items. It moves beyond just satisfying your hunger.
Yes. The material explicitly states that ordering these specialized regional items, or even just asking an intelligent question about them, often sparks genuine, prolonged conversations with locals.
Especially servers and chefs.
Right? People who are deeply passionate about their regional produce.
This transforms the dining experience from a simple consumer transaction into a rich cultural exchange. So how do we turn a menu item into an instant dialogue? The source gives us a specific language tip.
A fantastic natural conversation starter.
What is it?
The golden phrase, specifically for the Dungeness crab, is the Dungeness crab in season?
Just that simple question.
That single question is brilliant because it achieves multiple things instantly. First, it shows you know that seafood quality is seasonal, which indicates advanced consumer knowledge.
Right. And second, it demonstrates a respect for local harvesting and sustainable practices, which is a major value on the West Coast.
Exactly. And third, and maybe most importantly, it invites the local server or diner to share their expert knowledge. It's a guaranteed way to get them talking passionately about their region.
What's fascinating here is it's the link between consumer knowledge and social engagement.
Yes. You aren't just ordering food, you are communicating cultural and environmental literacy. If it is in season, they will proudly tell you where it was caught.
And if it's not?
If it's not in season, they might explain the exact start date of the next harvest, or they'll guide you toward the next best local substitute. It opens the door.
That single inquiry is a shortcut past the small talk and straight into a substantial dialogue. It communicates that you understand the life cycle of the product and the importance of sustainability.
And this is not just theoretical. I remember once asking that exact question in a small restaurant near Seattle, and the waiter, who turned out to be the owner's son, he spent 10 minutes explaining the difference between the traps they use in Puget Sound versus the open ocean. It was this rich, unscripted language lesson that I never would have gotten just by ordering the daily special.
That is the power of using specialized vocabulary.
To unlock a human connection.
This successful application of specialized language moves us seamlessly into our final section, which is about elevating the entire dining experience from a simple necessity into a powerful learning tool.
And leveraging the source's really profound pedagogical argument.
The overarching theme that ties all this regional etiquette and adventurous vocabulary together is the concept that sensory experiences intensely aid memory retention.
Yes.
This is not just a side benefit of eating out, it's the core educational strategy the sources are presenting.
And this is a truly profound insight for anyone focusing on rapid learning and assimilation. It turns a common, everyday activity eating dinner into a highly effective educational tool.
We often think of learning as purely intellectual, right? Confined to reading or reviewing flashcards.
But here, the entire environment, the smells, the textures, the social pressure, the specific taste, it's all repurposed for deep, integrated education.
So let's synthesize the strong pedagogical argument presented in the material. Why does the brain remember a new word better when we are actively tasting, smelling, and feeling it?
Well, the argument is rooted in neuroscience, specifically in the design of the brain's processing pathways. We remember vocabulary better when it's attached to a visceral experience.
And visceral means?
Visceral means deeply felt, often physical and sensory. The reason taste and smell are so powerful is that they are ancient senses, intrinsically linked to the limbic system.
Okay, let's elaborate on that connection to justify the deep dive title. What is the limbic system doing here?
So the limbic system, which manages memory, emotion, and survival instincts. It houses key structures like the hippocampus and the amygdala.
The memory and emotion centers.
Exactly. Now, the olfactory bulb, that's the structure that processes smell. It has a uniquely direct two-synapse connection to these areas. It actually bypasses the initial cortical filtering that visual or auditory data has to go through.
So it's a shortcut to long-term memory.
It's a neurological shortcut. When you encounter a strong aroma or taste, the memory associated with it is immediately tagged with a powerful emotional and physical context. You bypass those purely intellectual short-term memory circuits.
The information is anchored.
It's anchored emotionally and physically, making the memory durable and long-term. And this is the strong pedagogical argument we're extracting. Use your senses deliberately.
Let's use the specific comparison provided in the source to make this phenomenon concrete for you, the listener. The comparison between just reading a word and tasting the actual dish.
Okay, so compare the memory retention from tasting something specific like a New Orleans gumbo versus simply reading the word on a flashcard.
Right.
If you read the word gumbo on a flashcard, it's neutral. It's context-free data. You might remember the definition for the test, but you'll probably forget it by next week.
But if you are tasting gumbo,
If you are tasting gumbo, you are simultaneously experiencing the warm, smoky aroma of the dark roux, the heat of the cayenne hitting the back of your throat, the complex texture of the okra, the rice, the firm shrimp,
then the atmosphere of the restaurant.
the sound, the atmosphere of the New Orleans restaurant, the music playing. When you encounter the word gumbo again later, your brain doesn't just pull up a definition. It pulls up that entire sensory and emotional archive.
The information is anchored permanently.
It is. It's the difference between knowing the word and embodying the word.
And the source reinforces this with specific vocabulary examples, two descriptive words like spicy or tangy.
Absolutely. These descriptive terms gain definition and permanence when they're experienced directly. If you read the word tangy, you might understand it intellectually as, slightly sour.
But if you taste a highly acidic, complex barbecue sauce or a key lime pie, and someone says, that's tangy,
The word is instantly defined by that complex sensory profile, the sharp sting on your tongue, the slight pucker in your cheeks, the intensity of the flavor lingering after you swallow.
So the next time you try to describe food in English, you will access the true embodied definition of tangy, not just the dictionary entry.
Exactly. Every meal, every regional dish is a language lesson masquerading as dinner. It teaches you subtlety and nuance that no textbook can ever provide.
And this learning method applies universally.
Oh, completely. If you're ordering those Dungeness crab legs, you learn what sweet, briny, and tender really mean in context. When you're discussing the prickly pear, you learn earthy and subtle. This integrated learning is just exponentially more powerful than rote memorization.
This has been an incredibly comprehensive guide, and it provides crucial context for you, the listener, who has been following the broader curriculum that these sources represent. You've really accumulated a substantial toolkit for navigating the American dining scene.
I think it's valuable to take a moment to confirm the scope of knowledge we've covered in this educational journey. Not just today, but the critical groundwork laid out in the initial sources.
Right. We started by establishing the diplomatic phrasing needed for handling those long, often annoying wait times at restaurants. That's essential knowledge for patients, for managing expectations, and for maintaining a positive relationship with the staff.
Then we moved into the practical and ethical bedrock of the U.S. service industry, the arithmetic and ethics of tipping culture. Understanding not just the standard percentage, but the social role that tipping plays in supplementing staff wages.
Crucially, we covered the critical language required for safety regarding dietary restrictions and allergies. I mean, that knowledge is non-negotiable. It saves lives and demonstrates respect for your own health and the staff's immense responsibilities.
From there, we detailed strategies for deciphering those sprawling encyclopedic menus that can feel so overwhelming to a newcomer. Learning how to filter for regional specialties, local sourcing, and the ingredients that tell a story.
And finally, the focus of this particular deep dive: mastering the nuances of regional etiquette, the social geography of sharing in the South versus the collective provision of the Midwest potluck.
And acquiring the specific vocabulary of the adventurous gourmet, from frog legs and green chiles to seasonal Dungeness crab.
So you, the listener, are not just prepared to order a meal, you're prepared to conduct a successful cultural and linguistic mission across varied American regions.
Turning a simple dinner into a proactive step toward assimilation.
This has been a fascinating exploration, taking us from the strict social contract of the potluck all the way to the neurological link between taste and long-term memory.
It's been great.
So, what does this all mean for you, the traveler, the adventurer, the person striving for cultural fluency?
I think it means every outing is an opportunity. You have to embrace this idea that the restaurant is your most effective, visceral classroom.
We encourage you to view your next dining experience not just as a necessary meal, but as a deliberate opportunity to refine your English in the real world.
Every menu is a vocabulary test.
Every shared plate is an etiquette lesson.
And every single bite is a memory anchor.
The ultimate lesson here, combining all the sources, is this. Be curious. Ask questions about the green chiles or the Dungeness crab season.
Be polite. Respect the regional boundaries and follow the rules of the local social contract. You have to understand that culture is complex, and it's always about respecting those unspoken rules, whether that's a 20% tip or bringing a casserole.
And perhaps most importantly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you accidentally offer a bite of your plate to a Wall Street broker, you'll learn that boundary very quickly and permanently.
Oh, you will.
That slight, fleeting awkwardness is the quickest, most visceral path to growth and true cultural assimilation. Use your senses, use your words, and use your appetite.
And that raises a final thought. If intense sensory experiences aid memory retention, that powerful pedagogical argument we synthesized today, then this principle must extend far beyond the dinner table. What other common everyday activities could you intentionally transform into a multisensory classroom to accelerate your learning? Think about it. Could visiting a local farmer's market and physically touching, smelling, and naming the produce solidify agricultural and descriptive vocabulary faster than any app?
Or attending a regional fair.
Yes, attending a regional fair and experiencing the specific sights, sounds, and smells of local craft and cuisine. The sound of the tractor pull, the smell of funnel cake, could that lock in new conversational fluency in regional dialect? The opportunity for visceral, durable learning extends far beyond the restaurant door. Go find your next classroom.